Hey guys, Ruminating Reaper here. So as you can see, it's a fairly greyish Sunday. It's perfect weather to be outside the cinema. Yep, I'm about to head in to see Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I have to ask, is Brendan Fraser in this? Blumhouse have not been very clear on Twitter. Now for real though, I'm quite looking forward to this. The trailers have looked to be quite an interesting take on The Mummy, and I enjoyed Evil Dead Rise, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what Cronin brings to this. But the only way to find out if it's actually any good is to head in, get some snacks, and get seated for The Mummy. Alright, so I've got one of these to collect. See you on the other side. I've got my popcorn here and a Coca-Cola in the Galaxy combo, ready for Lee Cronin's take on The Mummy. So, Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I'm back from seeing it. It's of course written and directed by, well, who else? Lee Cronin. His name is in the title after all. This is of course produced by Jason Blum and James Wan. Now, like, obviously they've added Cronin's name to the title to avoid getting sued by Universal, and also to distinguish, that this is not a part of the Brendan Fraser franchise either. But it also is kind of a clever way to, signify that this is very much Lee Cronin's take on the classic movie monster. And honestly, going off of Evil Dead Rise, I was really excited to see what fresh ingredients Cronin would bring to the table. But does Cronin deliver a fresh and exciting modern reimagining? Let's find out. So the film follows Charlie Cannon, a reporter living in Egypt with his wife Larissa, and young kids Katie and Seb. One day, Katie disappears without a trace, until 8 years later, when the family, now living back home in America, receives word from Egypt that they have found Katie, to which they are overjoyed. But soon the initial joy of that reunion turns to something much more sinister when they discover that Katie was found in an ancient sarcophagus, and a series of horrifying occurrences begin to happen, prompting Charlie to get to the bottom of just what happened to his daughter. So, as much as we've all been willing to clown on this thing for it having Cronin's name in the title, and also apparent negative reports from test screenings, I still went in hopeful that he'd deliver an exciting and fresh take on the classic monster, and well, in the end, he sort of did. Honestly, I'm just kind of reminded of last year's Wolfman in that it has all the right ingredients and its heart in the right place, but ultimately it could have and should have been so much more. Look, credit where credit is due. Cronin really has incredibly strong instincts as a horror filmmaker. I mean, he's able to build a very strong and unsettling sense of atmosphere. He uses obviously quite dynamic and creative visuals to build tension and atmosphere throughout. There's obviously some Dutch tilts and unsettling close-ups and a whole lot of split diopter shots. Like, seriously, there's so fucking many. And look, he's obviously discovered a technique he likes, and by God, he is going to use it. But seriously, there's so many of them, like, sometimes multiple within the same scene. It's, yeah, once you pick up on that, it's kind of hard to unsee. He also employs some quite oppressive sound design to, enhance these sort of, shocking and unsettling moments. But of course, the real star of the show here are the gore effects, a lot of which, by the way, are practical, and yeah, It is incredibly well done, really quite gruesome and gnarly, really earning that 18 rating. And if you're squeamish, I'd probably recommend setting this one out because yeah, this thing gets pretty gruesome. Like you get these like close-up shots of skin peeling, you get like ears being bitten off, and at one point a shot of a scorpion piercing through someone's throat. Yeah, very much the squeamish and more averse to gore will probably struggle with this, but horror fans and gore hounds will likely have a field day with the craftsmanship on display here. So yes, from a technical standpoint, it is a really well crafted movie with an unsettling and quite oppressive atmosphere. Unfortunately, it's from a narrative perspective that the cracks do begin to show. So look, it's got a level of ambition here. There's some quite interesting ideas that credit where credit's due. It does attempt something. There are some obviously interesting ideas at play here. Particularly sort of tapping into primal instincts and how the sort of disappearance of the young daughter affects this family unit and how they react seeing her return as something unrecognizable and something much more monstrous. And there's sort of attempts to look at how the two parents cope, obviously with Charlie being the reporter. He's very much investigating and trying to get to the bottom of it for closure, while Larissa very much feels that motherly guilt and sort of tries to be by her daughter's side all of the way after her return. And Jack Rayner and Leia Costa do give pretty decent performances overall. There's sort of other interesting ideas at play here, particularly in how it incorporates Egyptian mythology and sort of tied together with a subplot involving this detective Zaki, played by May Kalamaui, who takes on the Cannon family's case. All the ideas here are there. It does attempt something with a level of ambition. It's just that the narrative around it is pretty basic overall. It's fairly standard demonic possession fare that you've likely seen done better in stuff like the Evil Dead franchise and The Exorcist. A lot of its narrative turns you'll likely see coming from those other better films. And the problem here is the runtime. This is the big killer here. This thing is 2 hours and 14 minutes, and my god, it feels it takes this very simple narrative and really stretches it thin. There's probably a cut of this that's a good 35-40 minutes shorter, and it's probably much tighter paced and flows much better. Because at nearly 2.25 hours, yeah, the pacing really suffers for it. There are long stretches where it really sags, and you're just kind of left waiting for the next shocking or gory moment, which again especially sticks out because it's a very simple and well covered narrative at this point, and so very much stretches it to breaking point. And a lot of the characterization here is again fairly standard stuff that you'd expect for this kind of film. Again, there's attempts to tap into primal instincts, but a lot of the characters very much do fit familiar archetypes here, with really the most memorable one being Katie. And I will say, newcomer Natalie Grace does a great job as the possessed Katie. But yeah, by and large, a lot of the characters here aren't exactly anything particularly special. Sure, there's a certain level of development, but they're not anything especially memorable. Which is a shame, because honestly, when it's allowed to actually let loose and just sort of go wild, it's a lot of fun. And particularly the climax where all hell breaks loose in the family home. It's great. It's exciting. It's thrilling. There's some unsettling and, shocking moments, and plenty of gore to be found. It's great. It's just that very much at that final stretch, the runtime issue really sticks out, and then it kind of suffers from Return of the King, multiple endings syndrome. And look, I know people have been saying that they felt this way about Project Hail Mary, which, by the way,
I disagree. I disagree, Gary.
but here, yeah, I really felt it. There's some satisfaction to be found in its climactic stretch, but, much like a lot else in the film, it does feel kinda dragged out, and that's a shame here, because what I liked here, I really liked. I just wish there was more of that and less of the filler. Overall, Lee Cronin's The Mummy does have its moments with some strong filmmaking from its titular director and its share of fun gore moments, but it's let down by an overly familiar and bloated narrative. Out of 10, Lee Cronin's The Mummy gets a 6. So, let me know down in the comments, have you seen Lee Cronin's The Mummy? What did you think of it? What is your favourite film that Cronin has directed? What's your favourite screen version of The Mummy? And do you think that Cronin's career will be able to rebound from this? Let me know all that down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new, and don't forget to turn on post notifications so you don't miss an upload.